Welcome back to Media That Made Us, the podcast about the art and stories that put us on the path to becoming ourselves. This week we are joined by Jack, aka Kasha Mika, so you can expect a lot of, let's call it, high chaos energy, especially because we are talking about everyone's problematic fave, Firefly. So, join us, won't you?
Girlfriend and I have been watching through Supernatural in chronological order.
Okay.
And we just got finally to the episode in the final season where the Angel Castiel does his whole love confession to Dean Winchester, and then Dean Winchester just stands there the fucking T-posing, dead-eyed, no expression. And I'm trying not to bring that energy to this recording, but
That's fine.
I'm struggling.
Is that the one where then he's sent to double hell?
Yes! Super hell for turbo fruits. Yeah, literally.
That is all of the information I have about Supernatural,
that's all the
by the way.
information
That's
that you
it.
need.
It's that,
you don't need to know anything else about Supernatural.
It's
that's it.
Whatever, 14 seasons, and all I know is Angel confesses love is sent to double hell.
Literally, instantly, immediately. And the guy he confesses to just stands there. I feel like a hate crime has been done to me.
I'm gonna forever imagine that he's standing there and he makes his confession, and the shepherd's hook, on an old timey stage, comes out and whips him.
That's basically what happens, Scott. I'm not even joking. It is sort of a hooking motion of the black slime of the super hell grabs him into the wall. I'm not joking. I wish I was. So I'll try not to bring that energy to this space right now, but I just wanted to warn you, that's where I'm at with my day.
To start off with, if someone was to ask, who is Jack? What do you hope the answer is?
Man, I said this literally also today listening to Ari's episode, but that is such a good and interesting question that I never get asked. I don't think anybody gets asked that. Mm-hmm. But I would hope that someone would say that I'm at least enthusiastic about the things I enjoy.
I can tell you for a fact that is very obvious.
Okay, sick, great.
That is a very obvious attribute of Jack.
Doing great. Yeah, that would be the dream and the goal, is that whatever I'm doing it with great gumption and enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, also, hello, my name is Jack. I'm an illustrator, a fine art framer, and a potter, and I make podcasts for fun, and I'm a gay androgyne. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And yeah, I'm also here to lose my mind about Firefly.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Because it's going to be a journey.
Yeah. I can already tell.
What sort of kid were you?
Well, okay, so I was homeschooled.
Oh, okay.
Until, I want to say my junior year of high school.
Ooh.
And
yeah,
actually, I repeated my junior year of high school because I did it through my homeschool co-op first, and then my mom was like, oh, let's put you in the IB program. You're so smart, you'll be fine. I was not fine. Reader, I lasted 3 weeks. It was not fine. Okay. But that meant I was in high school an extra year.
Okay.
So, I was a queer little child in just every possible sense that you could mean that. And I was how do I describe? I was just unhinged about everything the entire way through all of my childhood years and teenage years. Anything that I got really into, I was really, really into.
Yeah.
And I was just a million miles above the planet at all times. My brain was never in the things I was actually doing. My brain was on fucking the other side of the solar system always. So it was a lot of,
I feel that big. Yeah, absolutely.
Just totally untethered from planet Earth. But I was doing a lot of I was a competitive pianist as a high schooler, and so I was practicing
a competitive
the piano.
Pianist?
Yeah, I was going to competitions and sometimes winning them.
Awesome.
It My mom thought it was awesome. I thought it was less awesome.
Well, anybody who can play an instrument or do anything musical to a proficient level is very impressive to me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was impressive, but I was definitely like viewing it as a sort of cross I had to bear at the time. Yeah. Of course, as an adult, I'm like, that was a valuable skill, and I'm glad that whatever. But at the time, I was like, I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah, there's nothing that will ruin something for a child quicker than your parent making you do it.
Absolutely true, I think. But yeah, I was doing a lot of that, and so I learned as a young teen how to play the piano with one hand and like hold a book and read it with the other hand.
That's a
so
hell
I
of
was
an
also
image.
not even actively engaged with learning how to play the piano a lot of the time. I was literally like reading a book at the same time. I was hiding books under textbooks. I was hiding books under my bed. I was like, my mom was taking away all my flashlights because I would go under the covers in the middle of the night and be up until 3 a.m. reading books. So that's the kid that I was.
Just got to voraciously consume a new story or whatever, you know, to dive into a new world. That's great.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's not even like the only person you've talked to who have said that. Like,
I think we're at, I forget whatever number you're at, because I think I've lost count now. Like it's every 100% success rate, hit
all
rate
of them.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody has self-described as a voracious reader so far.
Yeah.
We'll find. I'll find the one person who is now a nerd who didn't read voraciously when they were a child. I'll find them. I will work on it. I will not let this podcast die until I find the one person.
They must be out there somewhere.
Yeah. So whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in Overland Park, Kansas, which is about 45 minutes away from where I live currently, which is Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
It was a very sort of boring middle-class white suburb, and it is now a little more upper than middle class. It's been gentrifying slowly over the years since I grew up there. But yeah, there wasn't like a lot going on in that like area when I was a kid. Yeah. So I wasn't like, it wasn't the type of neighborhood where you could like run around and play outside really. We had a backyard, and so I was like outside some, but it wasn't a like run around with the neighbor kids type of place. So I did a lot of indoor activities as a child.
I wonder how much that is also the just a progression that we've seen less related to where people are and when they were born. Because I know you're a bit younger than I am, and I was on the cusp of the era when kids still ran around outside.
Yeah.
And then like it seems like everybody younger than me just didn't
go outside.
iPhones and stuff.
Well, and like the way that neighborhoods were being like planned and built didn't allow for that type of space anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my dad talking about when he lived, because his family was originally from Kansas, and he was talking about, you know, they would walk all over their small town. And I've been to small towns now, and I'm like, I wouldn't trust a child to walk anywhere in any of these.
Absolutely not.
They don't have sidewalks, and like and people aren't like, they're watching for deer. They're not watching for children.
Yeah, literally. And trucks now are built so big, you can't see a kid over the hood of like most pickup trucks that currently exist.
Yeah, these big old death wagons that people buy because they are probably compensating for something.
Something. It must be something. It's okay to have a small dick. I have one. It's great. It works fine. Like, I promise. You don't have to worry about it. I'm always saying this.
Well, and like buying the big truck is just advertising how small it is, right? Yeah. Maybe they're actually very secure. Maybe they've like transcended all the way through.
Oh my god, wrapped all the way back around.
Yeah, horseshoed around.
God.
Okay, so I guess we'll just get straight into it. When did you encounter Firefly?
Okay, so I was, I want to say in my middle teens, like 15, 16, somewhere around there, and I was a big Star Wars fan already, and my parents were big Trekkies, and there was a lot of other like sci-fi media in our household. I was like, I said this before we started recording, I almost came here today to talk about Star Wars, and then I was like, I literally can't. I cannot get into it in an hour. But my parents received a full set of the DVDs for Firefly.
Okay, so this
as a gift from a family friend. So my parents introduced me to it, and My mom was like a little iffy on me and my brother watching we were watching as a family. I have a younger brother. He's like 6 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And so if I was 15 or whatever, he must have been, I can't do math, what, 9 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is a little young probably for Firefly.
Yeah. I don't
on
know.
The like hairy
I feel
edge.
Like it really depends on the kid more than anything.
Yes.
That's right at that age where like depending on the kid, you could really see it go either way. Like
yeah, that's true.
6 is definitely way too young, and like almost every 12-year-old would be fine, but like right somewhere in there would be. I would think.
That's kind of the sweet spot. But here's the other thing to know about the way that I grew up, which is that I had one really strict parent and one really loose parent. And my dad was the loose parent, and he didn't give a fuck what we saw on the TV. Yeah. And my mom was like, if there's a sex scene, we have to skip it. Like, that's the type of parent she was. So you imagine when we got to the brothel episode, and she was like, maybe we should have just skipped this one altogether. So actually, I think I might not have seen that one until later, like when we watched all through as a family.
Yeah. And so if you were watching on DVDs, then this was, it had to have been well past we didn't catch it live or anything of that. You came to it after, like, almost everybody.
In theory, I could have, but we weren't watching it on the television. My mom was, like, very determined to, like, pre-screen most of the media that my brother and I consumed.
Gotcha.
So even if it were available to watch that way, I don't think we would have watched it that way.
I'm now suddenly so curious how a strict parent like your mom would react to the fictional swearing that completely pervades like Firefly, which like,
well, so at the time she thought that was like fun and cute and clever. Okay, here's the other thing to know about my relationship to Firefly is that I feel very differently about it like today right now in 2023 than I did when I first saw it as a 15-year-old or whatever. But my mom at the time was like, this is great. They don't actually say any real swear words. So I love this. This is great. I could show this to my children.
Right.
Now I'm like, Mom, rutting is like a way like nastier way to say fuck than to say fuck.
There's something about taking something that like we use the word fuck so often that it almost loses its association. You get like...
It's kind of divorced from its original meaning.
You almost get that semantic satiation where it's just the swear word now. And like the connotation to the act that it originally described kind of gets loosened such that when you then like change it to rutting, it's like, oh no, that's got
that's what you meant. And you said what you meant it.
Yeah. Like it almost is more, much more reinforcing.
I thought. And I like as a young teen, you don't really like that doesn't click in your brain. But as an adult, I'm like, whoa, that is like so much like crasser of a way to say fuck. Just say fuck.
I love when censorship or people try to censor a thing and it turns out much worse. It's
so funny.
I hate to bring up Fight Club, but the best version of that ever is from Fight Club.
I have not seen Fight Club. I'll just tell you right now.
It's fine. It's okay. It's a movie that's been ruined by the culture. Okay. There is a scene where I forget exactly what the original line was. Oh yeah, now I remember. It was so there's the male, sexy hot guy sleeping with the woman, and they have just like flopped down in bed after coitus, and she says, "I want to." And the original line is, "I want to have your abortion."
Oh my god!
Awful, right? And I can't remember if the studio said you can't use that line, or if I think it's possible that the actress whose name is escaping me, she was in everything, and they fed her a new line, which she didn't understand because she's British, but it was, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school, which is absolutely worse.
Unhinged. Oh
they got
my
away
god.
With it. I love that.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's worse, homie. I don't know what to tell you. Objectively, that one's worse.
She didn't know American grade school was the youngest one.
Oh,
like
God.
She's like, oh, that's like college or something like that, right? Like, sure, okay,
okay. Amazing. Wow, you learn things every day. I come on to the internet and I learn stuff. Yeah, every day.
You've now learned the one good fact about the Fight Club movie. That is the only. Everything else,
treasure it.
Yeah,
I know that forever now in my brain.
Okay. Oh, so and I guess you haven't mentioned it, but this was your first Whedon joint, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. So this was like, okay, when I went off to college, I think is right when the first Avengers movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember really liking that movie when it came out, which of
Sure.
course in retrospect I'm like, come on, man, what were you doing? But like at the time I was like, this is so
that's
funny
Whedon
and
to a
witty
T.
and snappy, and I enjoyed that style of dialogue a lot as a teen.
Yeah.
But I had not seen any of the like Buffy or Angel or any of that at the time, so Firefly was my first Whedon experience.
And that being said, if you're gonna have a Whedon experience of all of the available options, as complicated as our relationship might be with it now, I think that Firefly is the one thing that I would actually point to and say, yeah, that's probably good. With the possible exception of his version of Much Ado About Nothing, but that's because he didn't write the script. Shakespeare wrote the script, so
right.
like, how bad could it
How bad could it get?
Yeah,
which version did he direct of?
He did the one with Amy Ackerman, and it's the black and white.
I feel like I must have seen this because my mom is like fucking obsessed with Much Ado About Nothing.
It's a pale comparison to the 90s Kenneth Branagh version.
The Kenneth Branagh is like the version that I think about when I think about that movie.
I can't imagine why you would make another, because it's so perfect.
You could stop right there. They got it. They nailed it.
Yeah. But what it was is, after they made the Avengers, he like needed a chill down project apparently, and so they just filmed Much Ado About Nothing in his house. Like that was like the one set is just Joss Whedon's house.
I mean, that's actually kind of dope. Like, okay, fuck Joss Whedon, but that's kind of dope.
No, like, that's a baller move. Like, that is such a theater kid move to be like, okay, I've come off my multi-billion-dollar project. Let's make a small indie version of Much Ado About Nothing set in the modern day. So it's also got like Romeo plus Juliet vibes a little bit too, because everybody's in suits and stuff. Like, so it's like, it's honestly watchable. It's good. It's not as good as much as the 90s Kenneth Branagh version, but what could be? I mean, like,
yeah, you couldn't touch that with like any sort of length of pole. I don't think.
While I was waiting for you to come on the call, I had my giant collection of pirated media open, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just see how much of the first episode of Firefly I can watch before they show up. And okay, talk about like seeing something from new eyes, where it's like, oh, even the first 5 minutes where I'm like, this is, I mean, like, I remember all the coding later on too, where it's like, these are the Confederates? Like, they
called them that? Yeah. Is this allowed?
Yeah. It's like, and the color coding in the system is like, the brown coats are brown, which is actually what the color of Confederate uniforms was. Like, for the most part, they were brown uniforms. So it's like, really, guys? Like,
they really just went for it.
Yeah. Although, like, entirely just one of those stupid, dumb things. They're called the browncoats, and everybody in that first scene, with the exception of Mal, everybody's wearing a red jacket.
That's so funny. Like, well, I guess they had to make Mal distinguishable somehow.
I guess. Or, more likely, they didn't have the budget for, like, custom uniforms, because all of the Alliance uniforms are leftovers from the Starship Troopers movie.
Oh my god. That's hilarious. I love that.
Like, that went on the Fox backlot, and they show up in a bunch of other media too. They're in like Farscape and stuff too. But every
just
time,
they have so many of them.
It literally is what happened. They threw these things out of polyurethane rubber for like 50 billion of them, and they just sat on the Fox backlot. And every time they needed like armor for a sci-fi thing, they just pulled some of them out and painted them a new color and shoved them out.
You're like, oh, we have these hard shell looking future sci-fi ass looking armors. And like a million of them.
We have gotten so far into talking about this, and we haven't actually described what Firefly is. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, we should do that. So, again, like, coming from a more modern perspective, there's like a lot going on with the whole premise of Firefly, but the basic premise is it's this like found family slice of life like sci-fi western type of deal, where there's a ship full of sort of miscreants, and some of them are like retired soldiers, and some of them are, you know, there's a mechanic and a monk, like just sort of a random ragtag band of people.
Never has a cast of characters felt more like an RPG party to me.
Oh my god, for real.
Firefly crew, yeah,
for real. But in like a cozy, warm, like fun way. Like, here's what I will say about Firefly in general is that the character work, no matter how poorly some of it has aged, the character work is solid. Like, you care about those motherfuckers by the time this fucking show is over.
Oh, 100%. And I am still impressed by their casting. I mean, most of the people in that were complete unknowns at that point. I think maybe I can't remember the name of the character who's the monk.
What's that guy's name?
Booker?
Ron Glass?
Yeah, Ron Glass.
Shepherd
I think
Book
Ron Glass might have been the
character.
biggest name they had at that point.
Okay. Sure.
And then
Nathan Fillion hadn't like done anything yet.
At that point, he'd been on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, and that was it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so it's like they managed to look around and go, okay, you, and you, and they managed to get a really great cast.
And the cast all has like really incredible chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
In a way that has like really sort of stood up to time in a way that many other elements of the show have not.
Yeah.
But like watching those people interact with each other, it's still so believable that this is a group of people who got into this situation where they're stuck together for a long time on this tiny ship, and they're kind of getting in each other's way and rubbing against each other in interesting ways. And that part.
But then at the same time are still sort of gelling together as a found family,
and like caring about each other in the way that you care about like people who you would both do anything for and would do anything to get away from for like 5 hours.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And the Western in space genre was kind of percolating under the surface, but Firefly was really the breakout media.
It's like the template. Now, okay, to be fair, I am not a Cowboy Bebop person. I never like got into it. I know I should watch it because it's like also good and a cult classic, but I've never seen it in its entirety. I've seen like an episode here and there. Yeah. But as far as I'm aware, Firefly was the first like sort of live action space western that really caught on.
And it was pulling from that and other sources. I will recommend if you bounced off of Cowboy Bebop, you should take a gander at Outlaw Star.
Okay, I've not heard of this.
Outlaw Star is Cowboy Bebop but dumber in a lot of ways. Because it doesn't have any pretension to being a like masterpiece the way that Cowboy Bebop kind of is. It's allowed to be stupider. And in that way is kind of more fun. But like Firefly directly references Outlaw Star, I think at multiple points, but specifically like the thing where they open up the box and they've got River inside.
And there's like a girl in there and she's naked.
Yeah, straight up stolen from a shot in Outlaw Star, which is one of the weirdest things. Like, you're really wearing your anime influences on your sleeve, Joss.
Yeah, you really said, here's my weeb shit. Look at it with your eyes. Well, funny story, though. I remember starting to watch Firefly with a friend who'd never seen it. And in that first episode, we got to that scene with the box. And my friend who'd never seen Firefly was like, there's going to be a naked woman in there. And fucking, wouldn't you know it, 5 minutes later, they open the box and there's River, butt-ass nude. And my friend is like, I was joking.
What a cold shot. I love it.
I know.
Something in the air that was like
the vibes.
The weeb horny vibe was floating through the air just enough to go, there's a naked woman in that box.
There's a naked woman in that box. I just fucking know it. Oh my god.
So this is also one of those series that was famously canceled before its time. It lasted half a season. So there's like 11, 12 episodes, something?
Yeah, maybe 13, 14 episodes.
Yeah, something,
not a lot.
Some very small number of episodes. And they're American hour long, so that means you get 40 minutes each.
Yeah.
I think there's a really good argument to be said that everything that everybody really likes about Firefly happens because it doesn't overstay its welcome in any way. Oh my god.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't gonna like bring this here, but I am in the final season of Supernatural right now, watching that for the first time. I also said this right before we got on the call. And talk about a fucking show that overstays its welcome. I don't care about a single thing that's going on in that television show at this point because it's all been beat to death. Firefly did not do that. And say what you want about, shows getting canceled before their time, but sometimes a show can just stop happening, and that's not bad. Like, stories should end, actually, IMO, sometimes.
It's really interesting, because I think in the intervening, I don't know the first time I watched it. It had to have been mid-2000s.
I was going to ask you how you came to Firefly, because actually this is one of those medias that I know is formative for both of us. So
yeah, it really is. I did not. It was one of those things that was percolating around for a while, for a few years before I finally got the DVDs, or more likely pulled it off the internet. And it was one of those things. Was like, it was actually one of those properties where everybody kept telling me, "You should watch this. You should check this out. It's really good. You should watch this." And I am the kind of asshole that when a lot of people tell me something is really good and that I should watch it, I like rankle and say, "No, I'm not going to do it.
I will not.
I will not." And when I will sit down, I will be determined to hate it. You know. And then I watched it, and I was even madder because it was actually very good. At least,
At the time when you saw it, you were like, "Damn, this shit rips."
I was like, "God damn it! People were right. I hate that. Yeah,
Fuck you guys.
I do love this.
They got me. Fuck.
God damn it."
Yeah.
It's like when I think I've told this story several times now, but it's like when Spotify recommended me a song about Bowsette.
Oh my God.
The meme character that's Rule 36 or 63 version of Bowser, and I'm like, fucking hate you, Spotify, because
how could you show my ass to me this way?
Yeah, you have my goddamn number. This is a fucking banger, and I have to put this on my playlist and play it, and you have to remind me what a trash pile I am every time it comes up. But anyway,
I love to eat garbage. What can I say?
Yeah, so I came into it late, and it was DVDs, devoured it, and I have to say that getting to the end of Firefly that first time, I think, everybody watches the DVDs and they go, if they reacted positive to it, they're like, "Oh man, what happened next? What happened? Like, what is it? Just like this thing's going full steam." Yeah. Well, no, because I was several years before the movie for me. So
oh shit.
Yeah. So there was literally nothing. There wasn't even the promise that it was coming out. And it was
I hate this for you.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. I think that state, the moment when you're like, okay, this thing could have kept going. There was all this potential. And you can kind of live in the space of like, especially if you're somebody who's prone to writing your own fan fiction, even if it's just in your own head, to like living inside of that universe because it never failed you. Like it never
closed. Like
it never closed.
Pathways didn't disappear.
They put all of these pieces on the board and took nothing off. And they were like, this could go in so many different ways. And that is actually a really interesting place for a series to live. I think that makes it easier to love because they never badly ended anything. Not for a couple of years anyway.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, I was a teenager voraciously consuming media with not a critical thought in my head when I saw this stuff first. And so I watched that movie and I was like, wow, I cried, I laughed, like, this made me feel things. It must have been pretty good. And now as an adult, I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
The movie is so... I feel we might have to circle back on this because we could spend the rest of this time talking about the movie.
We could talk about only the movie for like,
we could talk about
time.
But like, it's...
But we can't do that.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Nobody deserves that. Including us.
We don't have... Well, things I do want to talk about the series, and we don't have all night.
We don't. We truly don't.
So you obviously already praised the characters. I think that is maybe the strongest point of the series, which is...
it's vibes for me. It's the vibes, the character work, and the set. Like the Serenity set is the thing that I can't let go of in my head and my heart. Like chasing forever, the high of like watching those like long camera shots travel through every room on that ship as if it's a space
they built the entire Serenity.
Like a whole contiguous series of sets. Which is so fucking cool.
That is. Like the ability to do that is a luxury for television. You cannot normally. You can't do that. You can't do something that wild. And it does lend a very strong verisimilitude, to use an SAT word. I don't know why, but it lends a sense of place to
and a sense of home.
Yeah, and since that's the vibe they're going for, which is that like this ship is a home for these people. Like that is an important part of telling that story, is like actually developing the Serenity ship as a character of the crew, and giving it
absolutely
giving you a sense of it. You're 100% right about not just the set, but the visual design as a whole.
Yeah, very strong visual design in that show.
And which it's so weird, like because it's basically just what if we took Western stuff but also threw some sci-fi on top of it, which is on its heart, like on its face, like a really, really simple combination, but it's very much, you got peanut butter and my chocolate kind of thing, where it's like these two things gel really well together.
And they sprinkled some like weird Orientalism in there as well, and like again, that's some of the stuff that like I didn't realize until I was an adult. Like, so weird that there are like people speaking Chinese, which is cool because you're thinking like, oh, when we get off of Earth, maybe this is the like more universal language, and there's only pockets of people who are speaking English. Why are there no Chinese people in the main cast? Like, not even one. Not even one.
No, not even one. And that is a product of its time. I will give Firefly the most faintest of praise, which is that it was coming out of a sci-fi as a genre was fucking steeped in Orientalism. Like it is.
Oh, for sure.
It's the bread and butter of cyberpunk. It's every single our near future since the 70s. Our near future has looked like white people wearing,
Scott, can I just say, a couple weeks ago, I was super duper sick with bronchitis. I was like flat on my back on the couch for 3 weeks. Got really bored. I picked up Neuromancer to start reading.
Oh.
In the year of our good Lord, 2023. Let me tell you what, I got about halfway through and I was like, can I finish this? I don't know. It's maybe the most racist piece of literature I've ever consumed.
That doesn't
But it's like a seminal work of cyberpunk fiction. And I'm like, whoa, the vibes, they're rancid.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all.
Shit's rough out here.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I can't. There's no
Scott's
defending.
shaking his head, listener. I want you to know.
The thing is, it's one of those things where there's no defending it, of course, and by comparison, Firefly is actually progressive, which is
wow, the bar's underground.
Yeah, the bar was so low just by like including Chinese as a normal language thing is is miles ahead of Blade Runner,
Woof.
And
true.
It sucks. It sucks to have something like that kind of glaring out at you from what would otherwise be some pretty cool.
Because that's the thing that makes me nuts about Firefly every fucking day of my life, which is that there is like good content in there. Like there are juicy snippets and seeds and interesting ideas and good character work and good set dressing that's not like super duper racist. Like woven throughout in a way that you can't like untangle it from the mess that is the whole thing put together.
Yeah. It's absolutely a piece of work that is a product of its time. It's a product of its creator, both of which are flawed. And yet there is really cool stuff in there. There are characters and like, God, like I even the actors sometimes, I was praising the cast earlier, but they'd also pulled Alec Baldwin, who's turned out to be Alec Baldwin? Adam Baldwin, who turned out to be just the biggest pile of shit you've ever seen.
Yeah. And he kind of plays a pile of shit in the show. Like that's his whole character.
But like, it kind of makes it worse. Like it's like
because you're like, oh, he meant it. Yeah. Oh, he's like actually like that.
Yeah,
oh, fuck.
like it's so nice when a like person who plays a total piece of shit turns out to be a total sweetheart. If you've ever heard an interview with Giancarlo Esposito, who plays a villain in everything. He's just
in everything.
Yeah, he's just you need a villain now. Just get Giancarlo Esposito. It's great.
Yeah, he'll do a great job.
But apparently total sweetheart, like the nicest person, and that is so nice. And when you find out that they're actually just a shithole, it's like
you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But like. Again, because a show like Firefly came in, left a huge mark, and then didn't overstay its welcome, I think it was allowed to sort of live in people's, hearts in a way that it might not have if it had overstayed its welcome. Yeah, it really
became like a cult classic in a way that I don't think it would have if it had 5 more seasons and 3
100%.
movies or whatever.
Yeah. Like we already talked about the characters and the sets, or the visual design of the show. But is there something else that you're like, oh God, like why was this wasted on this show, or something that would be
okay? Can I talk about my main beef actually?
Yeah.
My main beef isn't even the Orientalism, which I do have beef with. My mainest beef.
The thing is, there's so many beefs. You just have to pick.
There's so many.
You just have to pick one, man.
Again, I like a lot of things, but I have a huge beef, and the beef is why did you include in this show this concept that like sex workers are like highly respected members of society who like have a lot of social standing and can get you into places that you couldn't normally get, and then have like arguably the main character be so like dismissive and disrespectful of sex work. Like, why did you decide that was the lens through which you wanted us, the viewer, to view this profession that you're telling me is supposed to be, like, totally above board now?
I mean, probably just because Joss Whedon's kind of a misogynist. I mean...
Yeah, well, he's definitely a misogynist, but, like, that made me fucking nuts. Like, even at the time as a teen watching, I was like, this just doesn't make sense with the world building that you've set up here.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make me believe that everyone's, like... You know, this is a totally legit profession, which, by the way, it is, just in general. I have to disclaim.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, but, like, why was that set up as, like, a whole interesting arm of the world building of this, like, sci-fi future if you were just gonna sit there and shit on Inara the whole time? It makes me crazy.
I think that it was a clumsy... It was Joss Whedon going, okay, I need a conflict between these two. I need them to not like each other because I need the slap kiss, right? Like, that's what he's going for. Like, he knew he's like, these two are going to have a romantic tension at the very least, if not a full-blown relationship at some point. And I need to have something for them to be crossing paths with. And if she is looking down on him being like, you're just a fucking slob, man. Like, you are such a piece of dirt. And he needs something to fight back with. And because of Joss Whedon being who he is, that is how that character fights back. Which, like, can you imagine how good the response how that dynamic would have been? Instead, it was like, she's like, oh, you're an uncultured swine. And he's like, yeah, and you're a fucking capitalist. Like, you're a you're bourgeoisie. And, like, took, like...
Hey, Scott, why didn't you write Firefly?
An excellent question. The answer to which is Breathing Space.
Yeah, please go listen to Breathing Space. It's a good show. Scott's in it. I'm in it. It's pretty good. It's like Firefly, but without all the weird shit.
We occasionally we've gotten several reviews now, which are essentially, or actually literally, I think one of them was Firefly, but not made by terrible people.
Yeah, we try not to be terrible anyway.
Yeah, no, we're trying our best.
We're out here.
Yeah. Firefly definitely has that quality of inspiring because of its glaring faults and, you know,
shortcomings and
it's got all these faults, but it's also got all these, like, gems of cool world building, of neat ideas, of great characters that, like, it definitely inspires people to sort of make up their own version of stuff like that. Either writing straight fan fiction. I've seen some beautiful fan art and stuff like that as well. Like, just people are able to trying to pull those diamonds out of the muck that is the rest of the show.
Well, yeah, I remember being on, like, DeviantArt before I was really old enough to, like, have an account, or, like, before my parents were gonna let me have an account. I was just, like, lurking on there, looking at you know, Firefly fan art and finding fan fiction to read. And interacting with the fan content was, like, almost healing in a way. As, like, I had consumed all of the existent media in the show proper, and was just like, well, you know, there's not going to be any more of this, but I'm still hungry for the food. And
as is the natural grieving process of the fan. When the thing you like dies, you then go to the fans and you find the other... You all grieve together by writing fan fiction. God, well, I'm having a hard time thinking about, like, I know I have all this love for the show, but I keep thinking of bullshit that comes into it.
Well, that's the struggle of talking about this show with literally anyone, because if you go up to somebody and Firefly comes up, I feel like the two things that happen are either I've never heard of it, or I love it unironically, and then you have to be like, oh shit, well, I guess we don't vibe then, probably.
Or, although there's a number, I've encountered a number of people now who are only remember, like, they only watched it the once, and they didn't dive into it, and they didn't return to it, and they haven't re-examined it at all. And they just sort of remember it as what it was, and then they don't think about, like, oh shit, like, all of the stuff.
All the stuff.
If you watched it, oh God, it's nearly 20 years.
Oh, shut up. I hate those.
God damn it. The unending march of time can go fuck itself. So it's, if you watched it 20 years ago, like, you may not have approached it again, which is, I can't blame you. But, like, it definitely, there's lots of media out there that, like, how do you have a relationship with it now when you can see all of the flaws, you know?
Yeah, it's so hard to, and I know like this probably also comes up in every single episode of this podcast that you do, but like when the piece of media that was like sort of the thing that you base your whole personality around as a young teenager or a grade school kid, and then you grow up and look at it critically and you're like, oh, yikes. Like, that's so hard to untangle in your brain, but it's important work to do. I think it's difficult, but it's worth doing.
Oh,
because, again, like pulling out the valuable parts and leaving behind the things that need to be left behind is worth doing.
Yeah. And even being able to like just watch something like that and still recognize what is enjoyable and what about it like works. And I think I might have said this on another episode, or I know I've said it on at least one. I probably said it on multiple, where the idea that like if you can't enjoy something and recognize its flaws, like at face value, if you can't look something cold dead in the eye and go, I love this, but this is what's wrong with it, and either love it despite those flaws, or sometimes, depending on what kind of flaw they are, love them for the flaws, you know. Sometimes that means janky sets and bad, you know, sci-fi makeup and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
look,
fine.
I love Farscape. I love to eat garbage. I don't know what to tell you. This is who I am as a person.
I actually don't know Farscape very well.
Scott, I need you to like get off the phone right now and go watch Farscape, because if you like jank sci-fi and women who can kill you, Claudia Black will blow your fucking mind in that show.
No, I know Claudia Black because she shows up in Mass Effect. So I know Claudia.
Only the briefliest in Mass Effect. She's like way more. Dragon Age.
Yeah, but that's all it takes. If you show up for 2 lines and you have a sufficiently commanding presence, let's say, I will know who you are.
I need you to watch at least the first episode of Farscape, because talk about Claudia Black with a commanding presence showing up out of nowhere to cause me problems specifically.
I might need to have, I might need just a reason to do it. Like I might have to start a Farscape rewatch podcast for me to actually
get off the phone right now.
I don't know why I bounced off that one. It has all of the.
It's really goofy. Like it's super. The tone is all over the place. It's like very. Oh my god! It's of its time, and they did not have like a lot of a budget to work with. And you can really tell.
All of the money that they spent went to the Jim Henson Company to make puppets, as far as I can understand.
Yeah, and the puppets bang.
Like if you're gonna spend your money, that is how you do it, right? You buy some fucking Muppets.
The Muppets are impeccable. A lot of them are like rancid characters. Like there's a little Muppet man in Farscape who's like a Jane quality asshole, like absolute top tier shithead. Awesome. And you hate to see him. And also he's like a little like 1.5 foot tall Muppet man with eye stalks.
I love it. But yeah, so we do have to learn how to like have a relationship with these things. And as time marches on and creators don't die, then we have to continue to have a relationship with their work where, you know, you come to terms with the fact that like, okay, can you still like Firefly based off of what we now know about Joss Whedon? Lots of people are having lots of trouble with J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series, which meant a lot to a lot of people. Right. I have I might have to cut this, but I have the worst version of that.
Oh no.
The worst. Not even the worst. I got 2 of them. I got a bunch of the worst. But the one I'm going to bring up is I don't like Harry Potter, but I love.
That's so valid of you.
I love Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which is a fanfic written by a push his glasses up his nose, quote unquote, rationalist.
Oh my god.
Named Eliezer Yudkowsky. He's at least like an AI guy. And he's like he's literally one of the people who's going to like bring about the end of the world, because he's like an AI ethicist who works for Google or did at one point.
Holy shit.
And he's an awful, terrible person. And yet he wrote what is actually a really fun fanfic, which is, you could also describe as Harry Potter meets Ender's Game in a lot of ways.
Oh, so it was laser targeted at you specifically.
Yes. So it's like you get all of the milieu. You get terrible creator, you get fun work, but like combining 2 different works that also have terrible creators. It's like it's like a whole like.
What's not to love?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I don't know.
Oh God. This happened to you the most. I'm so sorry. Okay. In solidarity with you, though, Scott, I think one of my favorite fan fictions I've ever read was also a Harry Potter fan fiction.
Oh, yeah?
I have not reread it in a while.
Sure.
But I'm also like, I still remember it fondly, even though I wasn't that into Harry Potter as a kid. I don't also, I like, I'm not that interested in talking about Harry Potter because literally all of the trans people I know right now are either in mourning or like literally I don't want to hear that woman's name in your fucking mouth or we're not friends anymore. And like, I don't blame them, truly. But yeah, like it's so hard. It's so hard when you love something that someone has made so much and that person literally wants you not to have rights. Like, what do you do? What do you do? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I will have to derail us from the serious discussion because you've brought up a subject that I think you might have more experience with, and I want to talk to somebody about it, which is reading fanfic for stuff that you don't know. Reading fanfic for other, like, is this a thing you have experience with?
Oh, like if a piece of fan work crosses my path that is for a piece of media that I haven't consumed, is that what you're talking about? Or
that you don't particularly like, but you still like the fanfic?
Oh, sure. I've done an amount of that in my life. I don't like go looking for it specifically, but if I have like friends from online who make work for a fandom that I'm not really in, I'll read it to support them, you know, and to be like, yeah, I read your work and I liked it. I've also read like work from, for lack of a better term, like fandoms that I'm not in anymore. Stuff that I cared about as a kid or a teen that as an adult I'm like, okay, I'm kind of over this, but like this thing crossed my path, so I consumed it.
I find the experience of experiencing a piece of media through the eyes of the people who love it to be endlessly fascinating. And
it's a wild enjoyable. Like view of the human who created the thing, as is like any piece of media that was created by a human person. But like fan work specifically has so much of the creator in it because that's all that they're bringing is themselves, that all of the other stuff is already on the table and only the person cooking the meal is like
and because they don't have to establish any of the things that already exist in the media, they are only established, they're like only adding things. They're not even mentioning the things that aren't new because those are just assumed. And so the things that they bring to the table are really revealing. But also like the way a fandom can refract the media through the fandom and then come out with something else is delightful.
And sometimes you're exposed to things about the media itself that like exist and are present, but either you didn't notice it or you like weren't in a place to like receive the information at the time that you first watched the thing. Let me tell you what, the last time I started rewatching Firefly from the beginning, which was embarrassingly shortly ago because I had this friend who'd never seen it and I was like, it's worth a watch. Let me just warn you, there's some stuff in there that hasn't aged well, but it's worth a watch. Watching just the pilot episode and maybe the first episode or two after that with our friend, me and my wife were like sitting there looking at each other like, yo, the missed opportunity of a ship we had not considered when we watched this as teens is that like Simon Tam in the very beginning comes off as this like sort of weirdly sinister, awkward dude who you don't know whether he's there to cause problems or not. And like he's gonna cause problems, but he's not there to cause problems. You know what I mean? But you don't know that yet. And he comes in with the red glasses and the like smart little vest on, and everyone's like, wow, this guy's vibes are just fucking terrible. It turns out what they were trying to do was have like an autistic person who didn't know how to relate to other people, but they didn't handle it well, you know, the whole deal. But like me and my wife were like looking at each other in disbelief, like, yo, Mal and Simon have like an energy between them that we did not notice as teens. Like they keep bumping up against each other in those first couple episodes in like a really fascinating way. And I was like, has anyone written fic about this? The like enemies to sort of like lovers, but they're still enemies, but like they respect each other. I've just like hit my microphone because I'm losing my mind about this. But I was like, surely we're not the only people on the earth who this has occurred to, but I'm not going to go looking for the fan fiction because I'm scared to go digging in the Firefly fanfic mines in 2023.
Yeah. I don't know. Anybody who's still there, I don't know.
I'm scared.
That could go so like it's gonna go one or the two extremes. Like either they're there to fucking fix it. Like they're like, Joss Whedon doesn't own this anymore. This is our thing.
Like taking full control of this.
Assuming
direct control.
Yeah. Or it's like oh yeah, awesome. You know, like let's
this shit.
Yeah, love this shit more, please. Let's reinforce this stuff.
I love white supremacy. Oh,
yeah.
Do you? Okay.
But like,
yeah, I'm scared. I don't want to go digging.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you get to see somebody new and fresh get into a piece of media that you love, and they point stuff out, and you're like, oh yeah, shit, I never saw that. Is always rewarding in a way. Yeah, you get to revisit it. I don't know where I was going with that. I apologize. I'm like nearly 40 years old and it's 9 o'clock, so like my brain's already going.
It's like bedtime mode for Scott right now.
But like, okay, sorry. Just to show my whole ass, I'm going to talk about very briefly the true trash maneuver, which is to go looking for the weirdest crossover fan fiction you can think of.
Oh my god.
Like
I am observing your ass right at this moment. I have to tell you.
I love this shit. I like it when people go completely off the wall. Like when they're like,
just go wild.
How far can we take this shit? Yeah. The only one that's coming to mind off the top of my head is Frozen, Disney's Frozen / BattleTech crossover.
Whoa, that's actually inspired.
Like horseshoed all the way around and became like outsider art. I read it. It's actually not good, but the very idea that they had the thought.
You thought
what
about
if Elsa
that? Yeah, exactly.
Was a BattleTech mech warrior and had a like, and of course she's got like an ice themed mech. Okay, great. And then you're like, yeah, awesome. And then they went that far, and they're like, well, I guess I got to write it now. And they didn't actually have a plot for it, but like,
oh yeah. Well, listen, I don't blame anybody who's like, I have this sick concept. I don't want to spend the effort to like deliver on this, or you know, I'm not going to spend the time, like hours of my life delivering on this whack ass concept. But the concept does rip. Here's what I'll say: all of those like videos that you used to be able to find on YouTube of like people photoshopping like Jim Hawkins' Treasure Planet and like Ariel Little Mermaid kissing each other or whatever. Big respect to those people for spending so many like man hours of their life creating. Scott's head is in his hands right now.
I'm sorry, you caused me psychic damage. You brought up a thing that reminded me of a thing, which is a surprising number, like a shocking number of really, really, really well done music videos about pairing up the captain from Treasure Planet with Jane from Tarzan.
Oh my god, wait, I think I've seen some of these. I've seen them, and I support it. Good for them. Here's what I'll say. Captain Amelia can still fucking get it. To this day.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong. Like, okay,
the vibes are there.
I get, but like, I don't know. Like, it's on a wavelength. I totally get it. The only thing that surprised me is how much time and effort this person has put into it.
Some of those videos are like beautiful, like
yeah,
beautifully
I know, right?
edited, very smooth transition, seamless integration of Jane Tarzan into the like Treasure Planet set pieces. My mind was blown. The first time I saw one of those, I was like, somebody put hours into creating this thing.
Somebody bought Adobe After Effects and learned how to rotoscope
to use it because they had a fucking vision and they wanted it to exist in the world. I respect it.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I want to study that person under a microscope. Like, I need to know where they draw their power from because I think we could solve global warming.
Literally, that if you plugged that person into any machine, it would just like explode on impact with the raw power that person contains. If that person's listening to this, shout outs.
Please, oh my God, come on the show. I will.
Scott wants to talk to you.
I will talk ad nauseum about whatever you want. I just want to know.
I just want to know. That was the other thing I almost wanted to come on and talk about, actually, Scott, was Treasure Planet. That was the other formative media for me. But
that is... There's a lot to say about that movie.
And there's some crossover, I think, with Firefly in terms of the sort of like...
Yeah. The sort of past meets future... Yeah. Aesthetic and all that stuff. 100... Yeah, and
I'm a sucker for it.
The story behind Treasure Planet is fucking heartbreaking too. Where
my God.
Like, I cannot remember the names of the two directors, but the guys who did like Beauty and the Beast, and like Disney kept saying, like, they kept wanting to make Treasure Planet. They wanted to make it for like 10 years. And Disney kept being like, no, make this other movie first. And they kept doing it. And they kept like fucking knocking it out of the park and making $1 billion for Disney. And then they finally got to make Treasure Planet and it fucking crashed. And it's
so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It like was not the end of the Disney Renaissance, because that was a couple years prior with.
And it was especially a bummer because they were doing some really cool, innovative stuff with like combining traditional animation with computer animation. And there's like stuff in that movie that still looks really good, surprisingly, because it's old now. It's like, what, 2003 or 4?
Something like that, yeah.
And every time I watch it, and I watch it fairly frequently because it is one of my faves of all time, but every time I watch it, I'm like, there are parts of this that don't look like that great, but there are parts of this that still look incredible.
Yeah. I think it really has to do with the fact that they were pushing the boundaries of what was possible at the time, and they just had to pick and choose. Like some shots, they're like, we don't have the time and money to make this work.
We can't. Next.
We have a lot. We've spent so much money on the surfboarding, solar sailing thing at the beginning.
Listen, I loved it. I will eat it all day long. It's delicious. It's so good.
It's just like if technology had been another 10 years forward, I think the whole thing would have looked as good as it ended up doing. And it is a beautiful movie.
It is.
It has some lacking features in terms of like characterization, I think. Like there's some banger characters in there, but like isn't
not
there a
every
robot
character
played
is
by like
Oh my god, who plays the robot? I'm gonna scream if I can't remember this person's name.
Because they felt like they needed the genie from
the goofy robot. They were like, we can't do this whole sci-fi film without a goofy robot. But
we're
gonna lose our minds when we think of it.
Martin Short. Oh my fucking god! Of course, it was Martin Short.
Yeah,
yeah. Like that isn't like that. There's stuff that works and there's stuff that doesn't work, and they didn't make it all gel really well together.
We didn't need the goofy robot, but I still love that fucking movie. The vibes are impeccable.
Yeah, and aesthetically, it's just fucking It's really
singular.
Really
no one has ever hit that aesthetic tone like ever again. Recommend me any medias that you know of where they hit that that blend of like the past and the future sort of mashed together in a really interesting, cohesive way, because it's so all time.
And I mean that's a piece of media that really has been like reverse Firefly'd, like that like not. I mean, I guess I don't know if the people who made it turned out to be assholes or not, but like at the time it was a failure, right? Like I remember it came out,
huge flop.
It was a huge flop. It landed flat. Nobody went. Nobody saw it. The critics fucking bashed it. It was not a popular thing. And then sometime in the last 10 years, all of the kids who saw it when they were young grew up and hit a point, and then we're like, no, this thing fucking whips. This is great.
This whips. What are you talking about? Well, okay, so I saw it when I was, again, like around a little before the age that I saw Firefly for the first time. I was like a young teen, 12, 13, 14. And at the time I was like, this is kind of weird. Then again, I thought that about Atlantis, Disney's Atlantis as well. And now I'm like, that's one of the best ones. I don't know what Baby Jack was on, but they were not paying attention. Like that movie's pretty cool, and Treasure Planet's really cool. They were doing that they were in their like weird sci-fi era. Yeah. Like that era of Disney. Those
it wasn't just Disney, because that's also the era of Titan AE.
Titan AE, yeah. Which the other banger.
Yeah. That being said, I don't know if it was well regarded. Oh, that's another Joss Whedon joint too. Fuck. Okay.
Fuck. Oh my god, I had seen a Joss Whedon thing, and it was Titan AE. I hate it here.
Shit. Okay.
And I still love that fucking movie. Oh my god, I'm so furious right now. I literally forgot it was Joss Whedon. And we talked about this not that long ago.
Yeah, no, we did.
Like,
we did.
A year or two ago, we talked about this.
In our defense, like he wrote the script, and I think it just went out of his hands at that point, and then like other people,
But it has some of that like quippy, like sassy dialogue that I fell for it as a teen. I was like, this is peak. This is like A+ character work.
There's definitely something to be said for like Joss Whedon's style being a victim of its own success. Wherein, because at the time, I was never a Buffy fan, but I remember the Buffy fans at the time going ape shit about the dialogue. Firefly has a very particular sound to it. It's really like it actually works.
Yeah.
The way the dialogue quips back and forth, and the sort of semi-casual nature of it, kind of snappy, but also imprecise at times. You know, like it's not razor sharp every moment, which is really good. Like there
are moments where it can breathe, which I feel like was okay. So Big disclaimer right now, I am not an MCU person either.
Yeah.
I stopped watching those movies somewhere around which was the last one? Maybe Civil War? I think maybe that was the last one I
Sure,
saw.
yeah.
I don't know. I tapped out. But
Yeah.
again, as someone who really enjoyed superhero movies when I was a young teen, and even like getting into college age, that was what I liked about it, was when there were moments that were snappy and fun, and moments where the characters could like breathe and be serious. And I remember watching, like, this is getting like so far afield, but I remember watching X-Men First Class as a kid and being like, whoa, there's like really like beautiful sort of slow, sad character moments in this. And like superhero movies don't do that anymore in the way that they used to, and I miss it.
Yeah, and it is because of the Avengers. It's because of Joss Whedon's influence on the
Avengers did
process.
this.
Yeah,
they robbed us of those moments.
Well, but like that's the thing, is that like he, like, I don't even know if it's his fault, but it's definitely the studio system looked at the success of the Avengers and went, okay, obviously this is the winning formula.
We need to make just 30 more of these.
Yeah, but and also let's dial up all the levers. Like, we're going to turn every dial up, including just like how many jokes can we cram in at every moment? Like, can we undercut every single one of our dramatic moments by having somebody say something quippy? Which works.
Can't have like a serious moment anymore.
And like those things can work when only one person in the industry is doing them. And then if everybody's doing them, it's like, oh, son of a bitch. Okay, now
this is why it's bad to have a media conglomerate. Like, you have to have different people making the medias so that they don't all come out the same. Because when everything is the same, you don't feel anything anymore when you watch it.
And even if there's we're down to like 4 or 5 big media companies, it's like we need other small people doing weird stuff, because that's how you discover that's how you discover the new cool thing, is by some person in their garage being like, what if I did a weird thing? And then I guess that's also the equivalent. That brings us back to the weird ass fan fiction, because that's essentially what those people are doing, and they're fucking right to do it.
They're doing God's work. That's my final word on that, is like,
we need
people
more
should
Henry
just
Dargers
make
in the
weird
world.
shit. Well, and like sometimes those seeds that you plant by making those weird crossover fan fictions that only you and your bestie care about, is that something maybe later does spring out of that you brought with you from your weird little garden that you planted, where Elsa is a BattleTech warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, taking those ideas and just like churning on them allow you to like
it lives in your subconscious, even if you don't like go anywhere with it. You can even think in your brain of your crazy fan fiction idea and never put it to paper, but that information, that content is like percolating in your brain all the time, and maybe it comes out later in a different form.
Sure. Or you can just totally just file the serial numbers off of whatever it is and publish it, and you can make $1 billion. Ask E.L. James. I mean, like,
you can just make $1 billion.
You could just you could just take a fan fiction that you wrote.
That's free money.
Replace once it's already successful online. Just replace all the names with ones that you made up, and then you're good. Good to go.
You're good. Just go. Just do it.
As much as I will rag on that on E.L. James, fucking get it, sister. Like, she made $1 billion off that stuff.
She made $1 billion. Bottom line, she made $1 billion.
Yeah, like, fucking, I would do the same. I would sell out so goddamn quick.
Yeah. Well, I respect to fanfic authors who sell out. Huge respect.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not. The thing I will chide her for is apparently she's an asshole about it. But like, if you're cool, then like, fucking sell out, man.
Make $1 billion.
Yeah. Who
wouldn't love $1 billion?
Well, I think we must go before you cause me more psychic damage.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's it wouldn't work if I didn't have a giant glowing boss battle like spot on my chest that you could obviously shoot, right? Like, it wouldn't.
Yeah. This is the relationship that we have.
Exactly. So, if people want to find you on the internet and see more of your work or hear more of your voice, where can they find you?
Okay, so I am on the Breathing Space podcast, as previously mentioned. You can listen to that on Spotify or wherever your podcasts are.
Not Spotify. Go to Podcatcher.
Just kidding. Don't go. I lied to you. Don't go to Spotify.
Or Pocket Cast, Overcast, one of those other guys. Spotify steals or doesn't steal. They make revenue off of us without paying us.
Oh, they make money off us. So don't go to Spotify if you can help it in general. But listen to that podcast, because my voice is in it, and I've written an episode for the upcoming episode for the current season. So go listen to that.
It's very good. You guys will enjoy it.
Thank you. And then I've also...
And I will remind, real quick, audience members, if you are going to go check out Breathing Space and you just want to check out that particular episode, it's an anthology series. You can just dip in. If you like it, go back. But like, you don't have to like, oh God, you're on their third season.
I have to slog through the... Also, it's not a slog. It's a good show. If you like Firefly, you probably will like Breathing Space. But if you just want to hear my particular voice, skip to season 2, episode 2, and start there.
It's a very good one.
It is. Scott wrote it, and it's excellent. But yes, I'm also in Devoid of Space. I'm also in Unspeakable Distance, Scott's little actual play, epistolary actual play as the himbo mech pilot. And then you can find me on Twitter at bypolyjack. That's my regular human Twitter. I have an art Twitter at Kasha_Mika. Kasha is my legal name. And then I have a website, kashamika.art, if you want to see my drawings.
Yes, and definitely go check out their art. It's very good. And also lovely photos of pots and stuff, which are always lovely to see as well.
Yes, I am a potter, and I do post pots.
They're very cool. All right, well, thank you very much for coming, and bye.
Bye.
Well, that does it for another episode of Media That Made Us. Thanks again to Jack for joining me and, well, losing their shit for well over an hour with me. It was a lot of fun. If you'd like to find Jack's socials or other projects, head to the description of this episode. And if you'd like to help the podcast out, like recommend us to a friend or something. Or if you've got a little extra jingle in your jangle, why don't you head over to patreon.com/cursedknowledge and give me some money, which I will turn around and give to people with more artistic talent than I do, to draw pictures of characters I wrote, because that is what every writer secretly desires. This has been a production of the Library of Cursed Knowledge Podcast Network.